So this is a video to illustrate how I test LiveNorth. There's a few moving parts, so I've put most of the information here. Now I'm going to go through and just explain the actual environment. So the way LiveNorth is configured is they have Sage on one server and then the database and SwiftCount on a different server. So in this case, how I emulate this, we have different servers that we call 2018, 2019. That's based on the version of Sage that's installed on it. So on the version that has 2018, the only thing I have that I'm going to use is actually Sage 300. I also can use a SQL from either one, but right now I'm going to use it from the 2018 server. On the 2019 server, I also have Sage, but here I don't use Sage. What I'm going to use here is SwiftCount. So the first thing I need to do is I have an instance that's connected to SwiftCount. I put the credentials on the document. So if I want to reset it, the first thing I need to do is open that instance. So that is the instance that's connected to Sage. Again, the information is in the document. So it's got a lot of item. It's got 24,000 item. If I wanted to reset it, I'm not going to do it because I did it last night. But if I wanted to reset it, as usual, we go to settings, reset database, we enter the password Swift 2019 number sign, and we reset it. So once it's reset, this is if we were starting to test everything. Once it's reset, we also need to go to our SCWin, SwiftCount Windows folder, which is in SCWin res SQL. And we need to run this script here that will actually open something. I'm not going to run it, but this is what happens. I just have to click on execute here, and it would execute and clean the local database. So once both databases are cleaned, then the next step is to start testing, is to reload all the data and then test with Sage 300. So once you've cleaned both databases, how you reload the data is you open SwiftCount. When you open SwiftCount, it's going to ask you for first, if it's not connected to SwiftCount, it's going to ask you for the server name, username, and password on the database. It's going to default the database to SwiftCount. So that's the first thing you need to enter. And once that's connected, the second thing you need to enter is the username and password of the SwiftCount instance. That's the same one that we have on the cloud, the one that I just showed you, the Albert at 2019.049.com, and then the password. So once you enter those two passwords, what it does is it's then connected to the SwiftCount database locally. It's connected to the SwiftCount cloud database. The last thing it needs now to be connected to the Basis database because Sage communicates with Basis and all the data goes through Basis. So to do that, I go to Settings, Integrations. So right now it's showing me that it's connected, so I won't do anything, but when you click on it, this is the information you have to enter, and again, you click Connect. So once you do all this, basically what happens is now you're connected. So again, there is still no data, but we've done all the connection. On one side, we've connected to Basis. The other side, this is connected to the SwiftCount database in SQL, and it's also connected to Sage. So there's just three connections are active. So in order to get the first thing going, we go to Products, and we hit Sync. If you do that, it's going to take about half an hour because we have about 24,000 items. And what it's doing is actually getting all the data that came into the Basis database. So in Basis, we have a few different databases. Just for explanation purposes, I just want to outline the tables in Basis. So the database in Basis is called Live01. In Basis, we have two tables that basically define what we have. So we have the InvMass, which is the inventory master table. That's the one that has all the items, that just defines all the item. And then we have something called location table. And the location table basically just has information about the location and the quantity in all the locations for all the products that are. In this case here, we have 48,000 rows. So it's a big table because even if we have zero, we'll still put it there. Again, we don't really have to worry about that. At some other point, I can show you how to populate that information, but right now, that's not the purpose of this video. So that information, once you go and you click on sync, all this information will be combined, compiled, and it's going to be sent both to the local SwiftCount database and to the cloud database. Once that is set up, then we can turn on the service so that we can start testing the automation. So to turn on the service, you can go to Windows, just type in services here, and then basically it'll open this. And then the service is basically a process that runs in the background that just allows you to do some automation, and that's the idea. So that right now the service is stopped because when we do a full re-import, we need to stop it. Otherwise, it's going to try to talk to the database while things are going on. So we don't want that. So as soon as I start the service, what should happen is that now they're ready to communicate. So there is nothing that we need to do at this point. So what's going on right now is that we have the information both on both platforms, and now we can actually start the testing. So there's a few things I'm going to test. I'm going to list them in the document as well. So I've described on the document the initial test, the basic test. So the first thing is to test outbound. So what we do in order to make changes to Sage, we need to connect to log into Sage. So I'm going to go to the other server and open Sage. So the instance that it was a bunch of instances, but the one we want is live 2020 because that's what we're testing. This one I set it up so that we don't need a password. I'm just going to click OK. So that takes me inside of Sage 300. Just click OK to whatever crap it comes up with. So the first thing I want to do is I want to test to see if I changed an item, what would happen. So the first thing I'm going to test is if a description changes in basis, does it make it to Sage? So I have that part number 830015, which is PVC. Sorry. And it has a half at the end. So the way that I test that is if I go to my server, I go to the 2019 server, which is the one that has a SQL. And if I look at this item in the basis table, I can see that the description is the same as on the cloud, obviously, because that's what it came. So I can run a statement that will just update it. So I'm just going to remove the half at the end, and I'm going to also update the date, and I do that obviously for that item only. So this statement here will just allow me to update the description just for that item and update the date, because basically the way it works is we actually run it through the date. And in SQL, how you run a statement, you have to be very careful when you do that, is that only make sure that you highlight what you want to run. If I run everything here, it's going to delete everything, so I don't want to do that. So now I've changed it. So now again, if I just take this statement here and I click on execute, I can see that the description is now missing the half. So I'm going to wait 30 seconds and I'm going to see if it actually changed it. That should have changed it automatically on the cloud. That's the first thing I'm going to test. Second test is I'm going to create a few sales order in Sage and I'm going to see if they make it to the cloud. So in Sage, to create sales order, you go to the Basis Swift Count platform, you go to sales order processing, you go to order entry, and I already have some orders, so I'm just going to use these ones. They all start with test. So if I put test here and I look for them, I can see a bunch of orders that start with test. So let's pick, for example, test 11. The one thing that's important is you have to make sure that if the quantity order is 0, that means it's already been tested, so we don't want that one. So this one, the quantity order is 2. Sorry, one more thing. If you look at the orders, if you see a shipment number at the top, that means it's already been received. So that one actually went through the whole process. There is nothing left to ship, so that order is useless. I don't know why Serge doesn't delete it, but that's a different story. But for example, if I look at these items, test 1, 2, I have an item here. Whoops, I'm in the wrong company. And this is actually completely wrong what I'm doing because I went on the wrong server. So I'm going to close Sage on here. This is actually a good example of what you shouldn't do. You have to go to the 2018 server, go to Sage because we want to make sure that we're in the proper North company. So I'm going to close it and make sure I go back into the right one. So I can see now I'm in Live North 2020. So basis Swift count, sales order processing, OE order entry. I'm going to put test, search. I've got a bunch of tests. Let's pick the first one. I've got one, quantity order one, so I can actually put this one. I click on post. It says you want to export the sales order to basis. We're going to change that to Swift count. Say yes. Then you can go to the next one. Again, this one I got quantity ordered, so that's a good one. I have the location is actually the warehouse. Post, yes, no. I'm going to do 3 of them. And there is another one. So those 3 orders were actually sent to basis. If I wanted to see them in basis, I can actually go to the basis tables in the SQL, and the orders are in the table called BAS order and BAS ORSUM for basis. So if I execute this, I can actually see the header of the 3 orders, and I can see the detail of all the orders. So this should all make it to the cloud in theory. So now I'm going to do a PO. I go to the 2018 server. And the PO, what we call order is actually here called purchase orders. And I go to purchase order entry. Again, I do that under the Swift count so that it prompts me to send it to basis. We can send it automatically, but that's a different story. And I think I have something called PO test. So I have PO test 1. I'm going to post that, send it to basis. And I think I have another one, test PO. Okay, sorry for the misinformation. So one is PO test, the other one is test PO. So I'm going to send those both to basis. I don't know what just happened there, but what I can do again, I can go to the basis tables on the 2019 server. So the basis table are PO order and PO or sum as opposed to BAS order and BAS or sum. So here I can see the first one. So somehow I didn't send the second one properly. Let me just redo it. So I went back to that test PO in Sage purchase order entry post. If you want to, okay, so that's actually a good example. So that one actually didn't go to basis. Why? Because it's actually being received. I see a quantity ordered, but if I look a little further, I'll see somewhere there is a quantity received. There you go. So that one's already been received, so it won't go to basis. And again, I could have known that because it has a receipt number. So whenever it gets received, so that's one actually that was tested and went all the way through. So it doesn't matter. I have 3 sales orders and I can see them here. I have 3 sales orders and 1 PO. So the PO with 2 lines, and I have, in theory, 3 sales orders, and in theory, that item should have changed. So these are the first thing that I'm testing. It's outbound. So I've changed an item, I've sent a few sales order, and I've sent a PO. Now I can go to Swift count and see if it works. I don't even know if it's going to work actually. So if I go to products, so A3005, so that did not work. The actually quantity, the description didn't change, even though the date was changed. So I'm going to wait and see what William has to say. If I go to sales, I should see 3 sales orders. I see only 2. And if I go to purchases, I see 1 purchase order. And I see it there with 2 items. So not very, very good. I got 1 order and 2 purchase orders. So I'm going to pause that and send it to William.